हेलो एवरीवन। टुडे आज हम लोग इस वीडियो लेक्चर में सीखेंगे व्हाट इज इलेक्ट्रोलाइसिस। मीन्स इलेक्ट्रोलाइसिस के बारे में आज हम इस वीडियो लेक्चर में आपको सिखाएंगे। इलेक्ट्रोलाइसिस क्या है, व्हाट आर डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ इलेक्ट्रोलाइसिस एंड इसका क्या पर्पस है। सो हेडिंग फॉर टुडेज लेक्चर विल बी इलेक्ट्रोलाइसिस So first of all, before going details into electrolysis, let's define what is electrolysis. So first of all, electrolysis is a process in which a non-spontaneous redox reaction is made to occur by use of electric current. That means by use of electric current, a chemical reaction is made to occur. Now look at this, we are using an external agent for this reaction to occur. That means the reaction which is happening is not a spontaneous redox reaction. So to make this non-spontaneous reaction to occur in forward direction, we are supplying electrical energy. So simply saying, electrical energy is used for a chemical reaction or a chemical process to occur, or simply electrical energy is converted into chemical energy. That process is what we call as electrolysis. So let me write down in brief what is electrolysis. Process in which electric current is used to carry out a chemical reaction. So first of all, look at this is what we call as electrolysis. So now look at this, we are using this electric current to carry out a chemical reaction. So that chemical reaction itself is a non-spontaneous. So since the reaction being non-spontaneous will not occur on its own, so to occur this reaction, that is non-spontaneous redox reaction, we are supplying electric current. To simply saying, this electrical energy is converted into chemical energy. And for this, now look at this, I'm just telling you this chemical reaction is simply a non-spontaneous reaction, so that's why we are supplying electric current. Now this electric current is energy is converted into chemical energy. Now this electrolysis in which this electrical energy is converted into chemical energy, this is carried out in a device known as electrolysis, sorry, electrolytic cell. So the device in which electrical energy is made to convert into chemical energy, that is known as electrolysis, so electrolytic cell. So simply saying, all these electrolysis should be carried out in a device known as electrolytic cell, where electrical energy is converted into chemical energy. Now look at this, in this particular reaction we are supplying electrical energy to convert into chemical energy, and a device is used which is known as electrolytic cell. So in this electrolytic cell we have anode. So anode is the positive terminal here, so please keep this thing in mind. Here the anode is positive in case of electrolytic cell, and in this anode oxidation reaction takes place. So reaction is fixed, but the sign convention is changed. In case of electrolytic cell, anode is positive, whereas in case of galvanic cell, anode was negative. And the cathode, here cathode is negative terminal, and here reduction reaction takes place. So the reaction remaining same, but only the convention of electrode change. Anode is positive, cathode is negative in case of electrolytic cell, and in case of galvanic cell, anode was negative, cathode was positive. So this is the convention of electrodes, sign convention of electrodes in case of electrolytic cell. Now look at this. In this electrolysis, the reaction is taking place at anode and cathode, and this produces some product. So these electrolysis, in which electrical energy is converted into chemical energy, is of two types. One is known as qualitative electrolysis, and the second one is known as quantitative. Now we are going to discuss qualitative and quantitative. So first let me look at this. In case of qualitative, we are simply determining what are the products of electrolysis. Simply we are defining what may be the possible products of electrolysis. Whereas in case of quantitative, we will define the product and how much of the product is formed during the course of electrolysis. That means we are actually defining the exact quantity of the products obtained after electrolysis. That is known as quantitative. So in case of qualitative, only products are defined, simply the determination of products. Whereas in case of quantitative, quantity of products formed is determined. So this is the difference between this qualitative and the quantitative aspects of electrolysis. So we have this qualitative and quantitative. Now look at this. Let's first define this qualitative electrolysis. We'll define what are the products from during an electrolysis process. So first look at this qualitative. So first of all, in this qualitative, I'll differentiate this qualitative discuss this qualitative under two headings. The first one is electrolysis of molten salts. Electrolysis of molten salts. Simply now look at this, I am using the term molten salts. That means this salt is fused at its melting point. So suppose we have looked at this salt. Let's start with this NaX, sodium halides. Now this sodium halides heating at its melting point gives you sodium ion plus halide ion. So all salts on melting gives you cation and anion. Now this is we have this ions cation and anion. These cation and anion will undergo oxidation and reduction at cathode and anode. So now look at this at cathode where reduction reaction takes place. So reduction reaction is Na plus will acquire one electron and this is converted into sodium metal. Whereas at anode, this X minus will oxidize to give you plus one electron is released, or the reaction can be written as 2X minus gives you X2 plus 2 moles of electron will be formed. So this is the electrolysis of molten salts. First category, sodium halide. So let's take a look at this. So sodium chloride. First, at this melting point, so this gives you sodium plus Cl minus. At anode, we have this 2Cl minus will oxidize to give you Cl2 plus 2 electrons. So chlorine gas is formed at anode, and at cathode, this sodium ion will take up 1 electron and is reduced to sodium metal. So sodium is formed at cathode, chlorine gas is formed at anode. Similarly, look at this. We take this sodium bromide solid, heating at this melting point, we have Na plus Br minus. So at cathode, we have sodium plus will acquire 1 electron and is converted into sodium solid, and at anode, this Br minus will oxidize to give you bromine liquid plus 2 moles of electron is released. So simply saying, when we have molten salts, the cation will reduce at cathode and anion will oxidize at anode. Let me give you some more examples here. So let's take this example. Magnesium sulfate. Now suppose we have this magnesium sulfate. Now this magnesium sulfate solid on heating at this melting point. Let's suppose we have this magnesium ion plus sulfate ion. Now look at this magnesium at cathode, this magnesium and will acquire 2 moles of electron and is reduced to magnesium metal. So at cathode we are having magnesium metal. At anode we are having, look at this, SO4 2 minus sulfate ion. Now this sulfate ion will oxidize to give you plus 2 moles of electrons. So what is happening now? Look at this. It is not sulfur which is oxidized. It is the oxygen which is undergoing oxidation. Now look at this. Here we have oxide. Oxygen is -2. Now some of this oxide is converted into peroxide. So oxide is -2. Peroxide is -1. So oxide is converted into peroxide. This is what is happening in the redox reaction. So simply putting in this way, whenever we have molten salts, these molten salts will give you cation and anion, and these cation and anion will undergo oxidation reduction at the respective cathode and anode. So this is the case of molten salts. Now if suppose instead of this molten salt we are taking this aqueous salt, aqueous solution of salt. Now instead of this molten salt we are dissolving this salt in a particular solvent, means that is water. So first look at this, we have NaCl aqueous. So when this NaCl is dissolved in water, we have, look at this, Na plus aquated ion plus Cl minus surrounded by water molecules, that is aquated ion. Now since we are using water, so water itself is a very weak electrolyte which gives you H plus ion and OH minus ion. So these are, look at this. In the first case, in the molten kiln, there was no competitor between cations and anions. There was only one cation and only one anion. So one was oxidized, the other was reduced. Now when we have this aqueous solution of salt, now we have two competitors. So we have cation Na plus and H plus ion, and we have anion OH minus and Cl minus. Now competition takes place between two cation and two anions. So the one which is having favorable value of electrode potential will undergo oxidation or reduction. So this is the rule of electrochemistry. So the one having more favorable value of electrode potential will undergo oxidation or reduction. So in this case, we have looked at this cathode. So we have this cathode. Now look at this, we have sodium ion plus 1 electron. So this is reduced to give you sodium. Now we all look at the reduction potential of sodium. Reduction potential of sodium is negative. Now along with this, we also have look at this H plus ion. So H plus ion will undergo reduction to give you hydrogen gas. Now we all know the standard reduction potential of hydrogen electrode is 0. Now if you look at this reduction potential of sodium and H plus standard hydrogen, so this reaction is having favorable value over this sodium. So whenever we have look at this H plus ion will preferentially reduce at cathode. So instead of sodium ion which was reducing at cathode in case of molten salt, now H plus ion coming from water will undergo reduction to give you hydrogen gas. So in case of this molten salt, we are getting sodium at cathode, chlorine at gas, while in this case we are getting hydrogen gas at cathode. Now again at anode, we have look at this Cl minus will oxidize to give you chlorine, and this gives you 2 moles of electron, that is oxidation. And on the other side we also have look at this OH minus, this will oxidize to give you oxygen gas. So there is a competition between formation of chlorine gas and oxygen. Now if you look at this, the reduction potential of OH minus or water to give you oxygen, the reduction potential of this water forming oxygen gas is more favorable than the reduction potential of chloride ion to chlorine. But due to the over potential, so I am using a term over potential, that means this reaction, oxidation of water to give you oxygen, though the potential is favorable for formation of this oxygen, but the reaction being kinetically very slow at the given condition, reaction is very slow. So since the reaction being very slow, an extra potential is required so that the reaction takes place at that particular potential condition. So they, because of the extra potential required to undergo the reaction, these reactions which are supposed to occur at anode will not take place. Instead, this Cl minus will preferentially oxidize at anode. So this is because of the over potential of O2. So I am again using this word over potential. That means though the potential is more favorable for formation of oxygen, but this reaction being very slow in the given condition, kinetically very slow. So to make this reaction happen, occur, we are required to supply extra potential. So that potential is what we call as over potential. So because of the over potential for formation of oxygen gas, this reaction is less favorable than oxidation of Cl minus to give you chlorine gas. So in this, look at this, hydrogen gas is formed at cathode, chlorine gas is formed at anode. So similarly, look at this, we take this NaX aqueous salt, where X is bromine, chlorine, iodine. These on electrolysis at anode will have, look at this, 2x minus is oxidized to give you X2 plus, hence halogens formed, and at cathode we have, look at this, 2H plus ion will take up 2 electron and is reduced to give you hydrogen. So halogen and hydrogen gas will be formed. But if we take sodium fluoride, NaF equated ion, so these on electrolysis, look at this, we are getting H plus ion, hydrogen gas at cathode and oxygen gas is formed at anode. So look at this, the difference. So the reason being, F minus is the strongest reducing agent, so tendency for formation of X2 will be very slow here. So this is the difference between sodium fluoride and rest of this. Now if you look at this, इन सभी रिएक्शन में ध्यान से देखिए, रिएक्शन देखिए, कैथोड में we are having hydrogen gas and anode we are having chlorine gas. So after this solution में, look at this solution contents, we have, look at this, OH minus and solution contains sodium ion and OH minus. So now look at this, after this electrolysis there is formation of extra OH minus in the solution. Due to the formation of this OH minus in the solution, the product after electrolysis solution becomes more and more basic. More basic, as the basic that means pH will increase. So electrolysis of molten sodium or potassium salt, potassium salt, rubidium, cesium salts, all these salts of alkali metal on electrolysis will form extra OH minus ion in solution. Due to the formation of this extra OH minus ion in the solution becomes more and more basic and the pH will increase. So this is the first case. Now look at this here, nothing is mentioned about the electrodes, because simply saying this is in presence of a non-reactive electrode, that is inert electrode. If nothing is mentioned, means this is in presence of inert electrode. But if suppose the same reaction NaCl is carried out in presence of inert a reactive electrode, this NaCl aqueous in mercury electrode. So mercury electrode, look at this, mercury is a reactive electrode which can take place in the electrode reaction. Here nothing is mentioned, means in presence of inert electron like gold, platinum, etc. Now in presence of this reactive mercury electrode at anode, so we have, look at this, 2Cl minus is oxidized to give you chlorine gas, and at cathode, now in presence of this mercury, this sodium ion is preferentially reduced at cathode to give you sodium, and this sodium combines with mercury liquid to give you sodium amalgam. So this is the difference between a reactive electrode and non-reactive electrode. So this is the difference between reactive and non-reactive. Now let me take you some more examples here. Take this case, AgBr aqueous solution. So AgBr aqueous solution will give you Ag plus Br minus, along with this we will also have H plus ion and OH minus ion coming from self ionization of water. Now In this case, now look at this. This is in presence of inert electrode. Now at cathode, we have look at this combination between Ag and Br. Now sorry, H plus N. If you look at this electrochemical series, this is the Ag to AgBr. This electron is above hydrogen, so the one which is above hydrogen means the one having reduction potential more positive. So whereas reduction potential of H plus N is 0, so it means this silver ion will preferentially reduce at cathode to give you silver solid, and at anode, now look at this, we are having 2 Br minus will oxidize to give you Br2 liquid. So this is what is happening here. In platinum electrode. But if suppose this aqueous solution of AgBr electrolysis carried out in presence of reactive electrode like silver. Take this AgBr aqueous in silver electrode. So we are using a reactive electrode here. Now when we have this AgBr in presence of Ag electrode, at cathode we have look at this Ag plus will take off one electron and is reduced to Ag, and at anode the Ag which was used as an electrode, since this being reactive, Ag of electrode, these oxidize to give you Ag plus sign. Plus 1 is released. So now look at this. In presence of inert electrode, we have silver and bromine form. Whereas in case of reactive electrode, silver ion is reduced to give you silver, and silver which was used as an electrode will undergo oxidation to give you silver ion. Now silver ion is consumed at cathode, silver ion is formed in anode, so that means the concentration of Ag plus ion in the solution will remain constant, because look at this, as much as this silver ion is produced at anodes, this silver ion is again consumed at anode, so the concentration or the quantity of Ag ion will remain constant. So this is difference between inert electrode and the reactive electrode. Now we'll take some more examples here. Let's take this aqueous salt of sodium sulfate, aqueous salt. So when this sodium sulfate aqueous solution, potassium sulfate aqueous solution, these salt means sulfates of alkali metals, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, these salts are of electrolyzed. So this gives you sodium ion, sulfate ion, H plus ion and OH minus ion. So at cathode, this H plus ion, 2H plus ion will preferentially reduce by taking out 2 electron to give you hydrogen gas, whereas at anode we have look at this OH minus. This OH minus is oxidized to give you oxygen gas plus 2 electron is released. So now look at this electrolysis of sodium sulfate, potassium aqueous solution. Hydrogen gas is formed at cathode, oxygen gas is formed at anode. The same product is obtained if we take this potassium sulfate, lithium sulfate, rubidium sulfate, etc. So the sulfates of alkali and alkaline earth metal, when this is electrolyzed, cathode we are having hydrogen gas, anode we are having oxygen gas. Now take this copper sulfate. Let's take this copper sulfate. Now this copper sulfate aqueous solution, when this is electrolyzed, we have copper is formed at cathode, that is reduction of cupric ion to give you copper, and anode we are having oxygen gas is formed. Now look at this. Once this cupric ion is reduced to copper, OH minus is oxidized to oxygen. Now solution contains H2SO4. So solution is acidic. So as the solution is acidic, pH of the solution will decrease. So this is electrolysis of aqueous solution of copper sulfate. Now take this example. Now we take this sulfuric acid aqueous solution of sulfuric acid. Now aqueous solution of sulfuric acid, this is classified under into dilute solution and concentrated solution. Dilute solution and concentrated solution. So in dilute solution, at anode, this is at cathode. So anode, this OH minus is oxidized to give you oxygen gas. So anode oxygen gas is formed. So aqueous solution, dilute aqueous solution of sulfuric acid on electrolysis gives you oxygen at anode, and at cathode we have 2H plus ion coming from acid will take up 2 electron and is reduced to give you hydrogen gas. So hydrogen gas and oxygen gas is formed at cathode and anode. Now we take this aqueous solution of sulfuric acid, but this is a concentrated solution. So at concentrated solution, anode and cathode. So cathode reaction is same. So 2H plus ion will take up 2 electron and is reduced to give you hydrogen gas. So hydrogen gas is formed at cathode. Whereas at anode, now in dilute solution, water was present in large excess. So since water was present in large excess, the OH minus ion coming from water was preferentially oxidized to give you oxygen gas. Whereas in concentrated solution, the quantity of sulfate ion is greater than the quantity of OH minus ion, so this will suppress the oxidation of OH minus. So here sulfate ion will oxidize to give you peroxo disulfate ion. Now since this sulfate ion being oxidized, so this gives you 2 electrons. So this is formed. So this is the difference between dilute solution and concentrated solution. So look at this. In all this case, what we have observed, these are some of the typical examples of electrolysis of salts. Now in all this, what we have observed is the products of electrolysis depends on some factors. Nature of electrode that is used, because in some case we are using inert electrode, in some case we are using reactive electrode. So whenever we use this reactive electrode, the products are different from when the same reaction was carried out in presence of non-reactive electrode. So nature of electrode also defines the product form. Second, this electrolysis also depends on the reduction potential of the ions present. So the one having more preferable values of reduction potential will preferentially oxidize or reduce. Next, this also depends on the concentration that I have shown you. This also depends on the concentration of ions to be oxidized or reduced. These products also depends on the over potential of the gas, because some of the gas whose oxidation reduction potential are very favorable, but reaction being very slow in the given condition, some extra potential is required. So due to this over potential, the reaction which was supposed to take place will not take place, and the other species will oxidize or reduce. So these are the main factors on which these products of electrolysis. So I repeat again. So products of electrolysis depends on depends on force, nature of electrode. That we have discussed inert electrode and non-inert electrode. These also depends on a reduction potential of ions. These also depends on the concentration of the species undergoing of electrolyte. These also depends on over potential. So these are the factors on which the products of electrolysis depends, and I have discussed all these four factors in this example. So this is what we call as qualitative, means we just determine what are the possible products that could be obtained on electrolysis of a particular salt. This is qualitative. Now, having learned this qualitative, we are going to focus on the quantitative aspects. Now, coming to this quantitative electrolysis, means we are going to define the quantity of electrolyte which is oxidized or reduced, or means the quantity of substance which is deposited at the respective cathode or anode after the electrolysis process. That is known as quantitative electrolysis. This quantitative electrolysis is defined by a law which is known as Faraday's law. Simply known as Faraday's law of electrolysis. So by use of this Faraday's laws of electrolysis, we can easily define how much of the quantity is oxidized or reduced at the respective electrode after passing of certain quantity of charge, that means after electrolysis process. So these Faraday's laws is two. There are two laws of given by Faraday. The first law, Faraday's first law of electrolysis. This first law of electrolysis says statement, let me give you the statement: the quantity or the mass of the substance oxidized or reduced at a given electrode is directly proportional to the quantity of electric current or electric charge passed through the solution. So if more quantity of charge is passed through the solution, more quantity will be formed at the cathode or anode. If less quantity of electric current or electric charge is passed through, the quantity of substance oxidized or reduced at the respective electrode will be less. So this is what we call as first law. So first law, the mass of substance deposited at the electrode is proportional to the quantity of charge, means electric current, quantity of charge passed through the solution. So this is the statement of Faraday's first law. So simply saying, look at this, let the mass of the substance oxidized and reduced will be W. So this W is proportional to the charge Q, where this W is mass. This is in terms of gram. This Q is equals to charge. So this is measured in terms of coulomb unit. So now look at this, we are passing electric current. So charge Q is equals to I into time T. So I is current, because we are passing current. Current is measured in terms of ampere, and this T is time measured in terms of second. So once we have this, certain current is passed through the solution for a fixed time. We are passing through this Q. So once we have this Q, we can easily define what is the mass of the substance oxidized. That means mass of the substance deposited at the respective electrode is proportional to the quantity of charge passed through. So therefore, look at it. This equals to W is equals to Z Q. What is it? Z is a proportionality constant which is known as electrochemical constant. electrochemical equivalent. So now look at this. Therefore, this W is equals to E Q by F. E is the equivalent mass, and this is equals to molar mass divided by NF. This is valency factor, that is molar mass. Simply saying chemical equivalent, this is electrochemical equivalent, this is chemical equivalent. Chemical equivalent is nothing but the equivalent mass, which is defined as molar mass divided by NF is valency, that is oxidation state. And this F using F is known as Faraday constant, whose value is equals to 96500 coulomb. 96500 coulomb. So this Faraday constant is nothing but the charge carried by 1 mole of electron is known as 1 Faraday. So total charge on 1 mole of electron is known as 1 Faraday and is coming out to be 96500 coulomb. The actual value is 96487 coulomb, but for calculation point of view we are using is approximate value, that is 96500 coulomb. That is known as Faraday constant. So look at this. This is equals to E. Q is I. T divided by F. So this is the first law of electrolysis, that is Faraday's first law. I repeat, look at this. E is the equivalent mass, F is the Faraday constant, M is the molar mass, and F is the valency factor or the charge on the ion. Now look at this. This Faraday constant F is the charge on 1 mole of electron. So this is the basic equation. Now we can have modified equation for this. So take this equation. So let this be equation A, this is equation B. Now look at this, we have this. Equation can also be modified here. W divided by E is equals to Q by F. Now this W by E, mass divided by equivalent mass, that is known as number of equivalents. Number of equivalents oxidized or reduced is equals to Q by F. Q by F. Q by F is known as number of Faraday. So number of equivalents of the substance oxidized or reduced is equals to the number of Faradays consumed during the course of electrolysis. This is the first law of electrolysis. So let this be equation number C. Now look at this. We can make the graph of these three equations. So take this equation 1. So look at this. We have mass of the substance formed in terms of Q, charge consumed. So this is equation of straight line passing through origin, and this slope is equals to Z, that is electrochemical equivalent, that is equation A. Now look at this equation B. Equation B, that is again mass versus Q. So mass versus Q. So this equals to again equation of straight line passing through origin, but the slope here is electrochemical equivalent divided by Faraday constant. This is equation B. Now look at this equation C. We have number of equivalents and number of Faraday. So this number of equivalents oxidized reduced is always equals to number of Faradays. Now look at this. As the number of Faraday increases, number of equivalents also increases. So number of equivalents is always equals to number of Faraday. So slope is here 1. So as the number of Faraday increases, number of equivalents also increases correspondingly. So these are three graphs which represents these three modified forms of first law of electrolysis. So now look at this. Let me just explain this again. Now suppose look at this. We have look at this Al2O3. Electrolysis of this Al2O3. Now let's suppose this Al2O3 gives you Al plus 3 in the solution. So this Al cathode. Now this takes us 3 moles of electron to give you Al. Now look at this. If you have 1 mole of Al3 plus ion, this requires 3 moles of electron to give you 1 mole of aluminum. So mass of 1 mole of aluminum is 27 grams. So to produce 27 gram of aluminum from Al2O3, we require 3 moles of Faraday. So 3 moles of Faraday means this is equals to 3 Faraday, because charge of 1 mole of electron is 1 Faraday. Charge of 3 moles of electron will be 3 Faraday. So 3 Faraday charge is required to produce 1 mole of aluminum from Al2O3, that is 27 gram of aluminum. So in this reaction, now look at this. If suppose this is the actual required, but if suppose reaction says only 2 moles or 3 moles and the 5 moles are assumed. Now this plus 3, that is what we call as here NF, valency factor. This is the molecular mass. So this is the total charge. So if this is the case, now question says, what is the mass of aluminum? You have to define. If 2 Faraday charge is passed. Now actual charge passes, so therefore look at this. Q is equals to 2 Faraday. Now we have to find the mass of aluminum. So we have this equation. W is equals to EIT by F, that is E Q by F. Now E is defined as molar mass divided by N factor into Q by F. So molar mass of aluminum is 27, NF is 3 because we have valency 3 here, 3. Actual charge passed through is 2F divided by F, that is gram. So if we pass through 2 Faraday of current charge, then this will give you 18 gram. Or suppose look at this. Now we have this copper sulfate solution. Now to this copper sulfate solution, a current of 5 ampere is passed through for 60 seconds. Then what is the mass of copper formed? Molecular mass of copper is 63.5. So of course look at this question. Now we have a solution of copper sulfate. To this copper sulfate we are passing 5 ampere current for 60 seconds. Then what is the mass of copper formed? So now look at this. We have look at this. In this copper sulfate we have cupric ion. So cupric ion will take up 2 electron and this is converted into copper. Now we have this formula. So 2 Faraday is required for formation of 1. So we have 2 methods here. This is 2 Faraday. At 12 charge, that is I into T, so I is 5 into 60, that is 300 coulomb is passing through the solution. Now 2 Faraday requires 1 mole. So now look at this. 2 Faraday gives 1 mole, that is 63.5 gram of copper. So 1 Faraday will give you 1 by 63.5. 63.5 divided by 2 Faraday, but the actual pass is 300 coulomb. So this will give you 63.5 into 300 divided by 2 Faraday. So this is 63.5 into 300 divided by 2 into 96500. So this is one method, traditional method. Or if by use of this first law, we can also define it. So for the first law, now look at this alternative way. In this way we can define. So we say first law. So first law says W is equals to E Q by F. So we have defined Q here. So therefore E is M by NF into Q by F. So M is 63.5. N factor. Now look at this. Copper is plus 2. So this is divided by 2. Q is 300 divided by F is 96500. So we are getting same values here. So whether you proceed in this traditional method or by use of first law. So I suppose this is more convenient than this law. So this is the first law. Now again some more examples. Look at this. So now look at this. We are having this dichromate ion K2Cr2O7 dichromate ion. Now in a given reaction this is converted into chromium plus 3. Now we are having this 1 mole of dichromate. 1 mole of dichromate is to be converted into chromium plus 3. So for this, how many charge, how many Faraday is required? How many Faradays is required to convert 1 mole of dichromate into chromium plus 3? Now look at this. In dichromate ion, chromium is plus 6. So chromium plus 6 changing into plus 3. So each chromium is changing from plus 6 to plus 2. There is a change of 3 units. But since there are 2 chromium ion in 1 mole of dichromate, so each chromium ion will be converted from 6 to 3. So total change will be 6. So therefore 6 moles of electron is required. So 6 moles of electron means 6 Faraday. So number of Faradays is 6. Okay, suppose we have this MnO4, potassium permanganate, is to be converted into Mn plus 2. So again question is how many Faradays charge is required. Now look at this. In MnO4, Mn is plus 7. Now this plus 7 is changing into plus 2. So we require 5 moles of electrons because 1 mole of MnO4 contains 1 Mn. So this Mn is converting from plus 7 to plus 2. So the total electron required is 5. So number of Faradays is 5 Faraday is required. Again look at this. We have looked at this. Suppose 1 mole of hydrogen peroxide is to be converted into, suppose this. So we have this hydrogen peroxide 1 mole into this. Now question is this, look at this. This is peroxide minus 1. This is oxide. This is, now this is a disproportionation reaction. Now look at this. This during oxidation or reduction. This is reduction. So minus 1 is changing into minus 2. So there is a change by 1 unit. But since there are 2 oxygens, so total change is 2 units. So 2 moles of electron is required. This is during reduction. On the other side, look at this oxidation. Minus 1 is changing into 0, 1 unit. Again 2 oxygen, 2 units. So 2 moles of electron is required. So if suppose 1 mole of hydrogen peroxide is to be converted into water and oxygen gas, then how many charges required. So total charges will be 2 Faraday because 2 moles of electron is consumed charge. So this is how we define how for all these reaction required is first we have to write down the balance reaction, and from this balance reaction we can define how many Faradays is required for particular reaction. So this is first law. Now suppose in many of the reaction gases are involved. If gases are involved, rather than measuring the mass, gases are more convenient to measure in terms of their volume. So for gases, the first law can be modified as, so this is modification. So first thing, for gases, instead of mass, this can be measured in terms of volume. So volume of the gas produced at respective electrode is equals to equivalent volume IT by F. IT, I is the current, T is the time, F is periodic constant. VE equivalent volume at STP. So this is the volume of the gas given at STP, standard temperature and pressure. Now this is equals to molar volume at STP, that is 22.4 liter divided by N factor. So this is 22.4 divided by. So now look at this. For this, 2 hydrogen plus 2 electron, so we have this hydrogen gas. So therefore look at this, equivalent volume will be 22.4 divided by 2, that is 11.2 liter. So we can use this. Similarly, look at this, we have halide and chloride, bromide, iodide, these oxidized to give you. So look at this, valency factor is 2 here. So VE will be 22.4 liter by 2, again this is 11.2. Now that is chlorine, bromine, iodine. Take this case, suppose we have this OH ion oxidized to give you oxygen gas. Now this oxide minus 2 changing into 0, there is a 2 electrons. For 2 we have 4 electrons is to be released. So during conversion of oxide to oxygen, equivalent volume is 22.4 by 2. So equivalent volume of oxygen is 5.6 liters. So these are some of the values that you can use directly here. So this is for gas. So directly we can measure what is the volume of the gas formed at STP by use of this first law modified form. Now the second modification for first law is, first law is applicable to electroplating. Now in electroplating, we cover metals by another non-reactive metal to prevent it from corrosion. That is one of the most common form is galvanization. So we take a particular metal, on the surface of this metal another metal, non-reactive metal should be covered. So simply we cannot paint this metal by another metal. So we has to be done by electrochemical method. So that is electroplating. Now for this electroplating we are using a metal solution. So this metal solution, by use of this metal solution, this will be covered around another reactive metal so that it is protected from the corrosion. That is what we call as electroplating. So during this electroplating, suppose we have solution. Suppose we have a solution with density mass by volume. Now we are using, this is mass, this is volume. So now we are using a density of a given solution. By use of this solution whose density is given, this is used to electroplate another metal. Then this mass will be equals to density into volume. Now look at this, volume is equals to area into length, because we are going to plate a substance whose area is A, length is L. So this can be written as density into area into length. Now from the first law says mass is equals to E IT by F. So this is also the mass, this is also the mass of the substance to be used for electroplating. This is the mass of the substance from density. So these two should be equal. So therefore E IT by F should be equals to density into area into length. So this formula can be used for electroplating. That means if suppose some current is passed through for certain amount of time and a particular density of solution is used for this, if the length is given, then what is the area that could be covered, or if density area L is given, then what is the charge required to pass cover this. So this is what we call as first law as applicable to electroplating. So this is first law of electrolysis, which is also known as Faraday's first law. Now there is one more law which is known as Faraday's second law. Second law of electrolysis. This second law of electrolysis says, now we have different electrolytic solution. So we have different electrolytic solution connected in series containing different electrolytes. Now to this different electrolytic solution, same current is passed through for a fixed time. That means same charges is passed through different electrolytic solutions connected in series. Then the number of equivalents of electrolytes produced at the respective cells will be identical. So suppose look at this. First law we have W by E is equals to Q by F. So now look at this. If Q is fixed, that means we are passing through fixed charge. If Q is fixed or constant, W is a constant, then now look at this. W by E is always a constant. Number of equivalents oxidized reduces constant. So now look at this. The same quantity of charge is passed through different electrolytic solutions. Suppose now look at this, we have electrolytic solution A, electrolytic solution B, electrolytic solution C. These are connected series, and this to this series same charge. If same charge is passed through it, then this law says same equivalence of A, B, C will be formed. So number of equivalents of A will be equals to number of equivalents of B, which is equals to number of equivalents of C. So we have different electrolytic solution containing different electrolytes. To this same charge is passed through for a fixed quantity of time. Then the number of equivalents of A in first cell will be equals to number of equivalents of B in the second cell, which is equals to number of equivalents in the second cell. So this is what we call as second law. So again look at this. Why this is constant? Because first law says number of equivalents is equals to number of Faraday. So Faraday is always constant. So if I keep this Q constant, or if we keep this Q constant, so the right hand side, that is Q by F, becomes a constant. So if right hand side is a constant, then the left hand side should also be constant. So different electrolytic solution, same charges is passed through, then the number of equivalents will be constant, though we have different electrolytic solution. So the C means, suppose look at this. We have three electrolytic solution. Suppose this contains silver ion, this contains zinc ion, this contains copper ion. If suppose to this we suppose 2 Faradays pass, a fixed charge is passed 2 Faraday, then the number of equivalents of silver in silver electrode will be equals to number of equivalence of zinc form, which is equals to number of equivalence of copper form. This is the application of the second law of electrolysis. So by use of this Faraday's law, we can quantify how much of the substance is oxidized or reduced at the respective electrode by use of this simple formula. So this is all about qualitative and quantitative. The application of this qualitative and quantitative will take up in the next video. Hopefully you have enjoyed this class. Thank you.